Okay, I'm a little bit late, and I know, but if you're on the West Coast, this is just perfectly all right. And I know some of you are, but most of my family is not. And so you've probably already gone to bed, guys, which you should, because tomorrow's Sunday. Tomorrow's going to be a good day. Tomorrow is an important day. But I forgot to do this today because I was so busy, just so busy working a puzzle. Do you want to see it? Look, it's a big puzzle. Look at that. Oh, you almost saw a messy kitchen. I'm going to move that really fast. I have just been so lazy today, doing nothing but working a puzzle. I did clean a little bit out of a closet. I got really, really busy, but I forgot to read our story. And so, hello to Cooper. Hello to Jackson and John Michael, my great nephews, who are so wonderful. Jackson, I see you playing the drums online, and you're doing so amazing. And John Michael, you're going to cure cancer probably someday. You're so smart. But I'm so blessed to be your great aunt. I want to say hi to Cooper, who's just down the street, but I can't hardly see him. And hello to Nessa, if she's watching. I don't want to miss out. Oh, those Hackett boys. I know y'all are probably already in bed. Your mom is so worn out from taking care of 4 boys. Pastor Shiloh and you 3. Hey, and thank you for the jokes that you send me. I'm going to ask your mom if it's okay to put them online because they're really funny. And they're inspired by some of these characters. So I love you guys very much. But anyway, let's get started. We're doing Tales from the Ark for the kids. And I know it's Easter, but I don't have an Easter book. But my husband and I wrote this a long, long time ago. I think there's still a few online out there here and there. If you can find them, that's wonderful. But if you remember, we talked about who is that? Abraham the polar bear. I love that story. We talked about the turtle that he thought was a rock. Let's see, what else did we talk about? We had a story about Jehoshaphat the yak. Jumping Jehoshaphat. And he thought the ark was sinking, and he found a hippo that couldn't find his spot. And what it turned out was the little leak in the ark was there on purpose, so that the hippo would stay nice and cool in the water. Isn't that precious? I hope you can see these. I just put my phone up today. I didn't do all that fancy stuff since I realized what time it was and I forgot. And here's Gideon the beaver. Remember, he couldn't get any sleep? Why? Because the camel was snoring. And he didn't think he had any gifts that the Lord could use. And what happened? He did have gifts. He used his teeth and made a snore box. I think it's one of the first CPAP machines on the planet. Your parents will explain to you what that is. So tonight, we're on chapter 4, and we're reading about Moses the ferret, which is kind of great for our Jewish friends. It's Passover. And so look at this. We're going to see what in the world Moses is up to. Moses the ferret searches high and low. I'm so excited to see what happens. I haven't read these in so long, and I didn't even skim over it. So if I mess up, we'll just keep on going. It was a dark and stormy night on the ark again. Do you know how many days it stormed and rained? It's almost like how many days we've been stuck in the house, isn't it? Quarantined, stuck with our families. It was a dark and stormy night on the ark again when the problems all started for Moses the ferret. The ark rocked so much one way and then the other way that Zipporah, Moses' wife, slid right off her straw bed and down the ramp to the next level and just disappeared into the sea of the other animals. She's just gone. Zipporah, Moses called out. Looking across the empty spot on the hay next to him, he climbed to the top of a hay bale and sat upright on his hind legs and called out again, first to his left, then to his right, but there was no answer. With panic in his voice, Moses turned to his friends and his cousins, the mink, the weasel, and Joshua, the hamster. And he said, We have to find her. Can you help me?" "We'll help you," Joshua said. "Won't we, friends? Let's go." "Help what?" asked a spotted rat with a long pink tail. "We'll help Moses find his wife, Zipporah." So together in a large group, they all set out, wandering about the ark. They searched high, where the birds and the giraffes hung out. They searched low, where the crocodiles splashed around in the very bottom, where the hippos were napping. But Zipporah was nowhere to be found. Every chance he got, Moses would stop and ask someone if they'd seen his wife. "Excuse me, Mr. Porcupine, you haven't happened to have seen my wife wandering about, have you?" The porcupine shook his head. "But if you'd like to stay and play, we can take turns," he said, and the two porcupines were seesawing on a long plank balanced on a hay bale. Up and down, the wind blowing through their prickly pines. But Moses moved on, and then he asked a big rhinoceros. First, you want to see Moses? Look, this is Moses saying, "I can't find my wife, Zipporah." And he's got all the other animals engaged. I don't know if I'm going to turn this off for a minute. There we go. Oh, not that way. There we go. I'll turn those comments off a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. Well, I guess I can't. I don't know how that works. Anyway, there you go. Look, there is Moses the ferret. He's sitting on a hay bale going, "Have you seen my wife, Zipporah?" Trying to get some help. Oh, hello, Glenda Maxie watching. I hope Julie, Beth, and James, I know they're probably already in bed, so just tell them Aunt Chonda's on and they can watch it later. All right, but Moses moved on when he asked a big rhinoceros who had barrel hoops hanging from his horn at the end of his nose. Oh, did I get that right? He had barrel hoops hanging from the horn at the end of his nose. Oh, yeah, it was a rhinoceros. "No," answered the rhinoceros, "but why don't you stay and play for a while? You can look later." But Moses thought the game looked really fun, but he had to shake his head no. He had to find his wife, Zipporah. Onward Moses and his band went, asking everyone he saw if they had seen Zipporah, but the answer was always the same, "No." Then he stopped and he asked a cow, who in the golden light of the oil lamps looked almost golden. "How now, brown cow?" said Moses. The small brown cow turned and blinked her long, beautiful lashes. When she saw the ferret, she giggled and she said, "My, you sure are a cute little creature." "Well, thank you very much," said Moses, "but I'm looking for my wife, Zipporah. You haven't seen her wandering about, have you?" The cow just smiled and then she giggled. "No, but you're welcome to stay here if you want to and see if she comes by." Then the cow pointed with her nose to a big pile of straw in the corner of her stall. "There's plenty of room for you and your friends," she giggled. "We could play and have all sorts of fun." Just then the spotted rat with the long pink tail tugged at the ferret's fur. "This doesn't sound too bad, Mo. Dry straw, warm straw, and now—" The rat leaned in closer to Moses so he couldn't be overheard and pointed discreetly to the cow. "I heard these things have an endless supply of sweet, warm milk." The rat licked his lips and rubbed his tummy. "So what do you say? Why don't we just park it here for a while?" The rat twitched his whiskers in a friendly sort of way, but Moses frowned. He had to find Zipporah. And besides, to him, the place was too big, too noisy. Close by, a camel snoring loudly. Remember that one? He figured one cow would squash a ferret pretty easily if she happened to forget he was napping in the straw. And just as he was thinking about how clumsy cows could be, this golden calf turned about and knocked over a small table. That knocked over a barrel, and then that rolled across the floor and hit a pole. That shook a bale of hay from the loft. The hay fell onto one end of the seesaw where the porcupines were playing and sent them flying into the air, and on top of the rhino, who yelped and bolted with his horn down and charged and parted the sea of animals that filled the floor. And out the door he kept going, and there, At the end of the long clearing, parted by the rhino, Moses could see Zipporah. "There she is, Moses," yelled Joshua, and Moses, seeing Zipporah, chirped and chittered and he chirped and chittered the way ferrets do when they get too excited. He was so glad that he passed by the porcupines and the rhino and the cow, even though it looked like they were having lots of fun, or he may have never found what God intended him to find: Zipporah, his wife, his promised hand. Although the trip started out a bit bumpy for Moses and Zipporah, eventually everything seemed to fall into place. At least, they didn't have to deal with that big, mean gorilla. That's coming next. So let's go back and look at the pictures. I know there's not very many of them, but look. There is the ferret talking to the cow. There's so many things in here that's just like a story in the Bible about Moses leading the children out of to find the promised land. Look, and there is Moses and Zipporah. They found each other. Aren't they cute? And now we're on to chapter 5. It's a good one. Are you ready? This is not very long. We're going to read one more, and then I'm going to go to bed with the rest of you. Chapter 5. Is there enough room on this ark for a goose and a gorilla? That's going to be good. Look at that picture. Isn't that pretty? Looks like a little lion cub talking to the zebra. All right, let's see what this one is about. Are you ready? Deborah, the zebra. Deborah was a wonderful character in the Bible that I like to read about. All these characters are in the Old Testament. Deborah, the zebra, had wonderful black and white stripes, just like a zebra is supposed to have. And she had an unusually long, flowing tail that swept the bottom of the ark whenever she walked. But what Deborah did better than anyone else in the ark was answer questions. To the zebra, everything was black and white. So everyone lined up to ask her things. "How did the leopard get a spot?" said the panther, who was a sleek and pretty, but all brown without a single spot. "How much wood can a woodchuck chuck?" asked a little furry woodchuck, who stood on his hind legs to get Deborah's attention. "And why did the chicken cross the road?" clucked a hen out of a grin. After each question, Deborah would first twist her face into a frown and study the ceiling. As if she were really thinking hard. But really, she was just listening to God. It wasn't that she was trying so hard to hear him. That was the easy part. The hard part was not to hear all the grunts and the oinks and the snorts and the chorts from all those crowded in around her. Have you ever gotten so loud and busy and everything is so loud around you, you can't really even hear yourself think? Sometimes if you don't get quiet and still, how can you hear about God and hear from God? Anyway, when she was ready to answer, her face would relax into a very pleasant one. So pleasant that oftentimes when Noah was around, he'd have to reach out and scratch her between the ears. But the toughest question of all that day that came from Jael the goose. With a cluck and a honk, she asked Deborah, "How do you move a 350-pound ape?" Deborah frowned and asked, Is Sisera, I think that's how you say it, Sisera, is Sisera gorilla being a pest again? Deborah asked. Isn't that cute? There's Deborah the zebra who answers everybody's questions. Look, and there's the goose trying to ask, how do you move a 350-pound ape? Look at it. Look at that big ape. And the goose. Looks like he's got a little something stuck in his knee, doesn't it? That's a good picture. The goose nodded and said, "He just lies in the middle of the floor, right where I like to waddle." Deborah said, thinking for a moment. "Does he do this a lot?" Well, I haven't waddled in days, confessed the goose. Deborah thought more about it. She twisted her face up into a horrible expression and kept it that way until she had an answer. It was her smile that let everyone know this. There is a way, she said to the goose, but you'll have to be very, very brave to do it. Jael pulled her feathered wings back, stuck out her chest and said, I'm a goose, not a chicken. Then, oh, thank you very much. See, I get distracted. Then Deborah leaned in close to tell Joel the plan that God had given her, a plan that would move even a lazy ape. The next day when Jael, I guess that's how you say it, went for a morning waddle, there was Sisria, the big gorilla, all stretched out on the floor so that no one could pass. Jael considered the plan Deborah had given her, but she thought she'd try talking to the gorilla one more time. Excuse me, can I pass? Quack, quack. I just need to get by. Just let me slip right through there and I'll be on my way, Mr. Gorilla. But the gorilla didn't even say hello to Jael. He just lay there, yawning and stretching and picking out fleas and putting them in his mouth. It's rude to eat in front of someone that way, Jael boldly said. And for just a brief moment, Jael believed that maybe the gorilla was going to be kind after all, that she wouldn't have to go through her plan because he stood up and she could have waddled fast enough. She would have slipped right past him, but in a moment, with a great big yawn, the gorilla plopped down again. He was just turning over and getting comfortable. For a long time, Joel watched Sisria eat and sleep, eat and sleep, eat and sleep. And that did it. She was through talking. Now she was waiting for the perfect moment to put Deborah's plan into action, to build up her courage. Finally, the time came when the gorilla stood up again. First, he stretched up and stretched high, and then stretched low and bending over. And when he bent over, Joel took off just as she had planned in her mind, sunk her pointed bill right into the biggest, softest target that the gorilla offered. And a giant gorilla yelp, Sisria shot through the arc, quite unlike the lazy gorilla Joel had always known. And Joel, quite pleased with the way her plan had gone, waddled her way back home, packed a big lunch, and headed out for an even longer waddle. The first place she was going to go was back to see Deborah. She couldn't wait to tell her about how the plan had worked and about how fast a big lazy gorilla could move. Lazy gorillas aren't much good for anything but taking up space, and God can help with those sorts of problems if you're patient. Giant birds that can't fly like an ostrich, well, now they're an entirely different story. Look, there's the goose. And what did she do? She got her courage and poked him in the behind. That's hilarious. And the gorilla went running away. 2 good chapters. And Deborah, the zebra, is so wise and answers everyone's questions. Isn't that good? I love that. Now, we'll skip tomorrow because it's Easter and you should spend it with your family. But Monday we'll come back and we've got maybe a couple of more days and we'll finish Tales from the Ark and we'll start on another book. But I love this book. Tales from the Ark by me, Chonda and David Pierce. On Monday we're going to pick up and talk about this hyena. It's funny, I was talking to somebody in Israel today and he could hear the hyenas off in the distance. Isn't that wild? Okay, there you have it. Tales from the Ark. Hope you're having a really great Saturday. Crawl in the bed and get lots of sleep. And sit on the living room couch and enjoy an Easter service somewhere with your parents online. Tomorrow is a very, very special day for all Christians everywhere, because we serve a risen Savior. Jesus Christ is not dead. He is alive, and he was raised from the dead on Easter morning. I've seen the tomb. It's empty. Just thought I'd tell you. Have a good night, kids. Talk to you later.